Good evening. Welcome to Brass Tacks on what is surely a historic day. A giant leap for ISRO and for 1 billion plus Indians. India today has become only the 4th country ever to land successfully on the lunar surface, on the moon. And that too, the first ever to successfully land on the south side of the moon. No country in the history of space exploration has ever done that. Now, over the next 2 weeks, the lander Vikram and the rover Pragyan will be studying the lunar surface. They will be looking for mineral deposits, looking for ice that's been frozen there at minus 200 degrees. They will be relaying that data back to mission control in Bengaluru. Over the next 1 hour, some of the biggest voices, scientists, space experts, people who have done this for a living for the last 30 and 40 years will be joining us, both nationally and international guests, people who've been associated with the International Space Station, with NASA, experts like you will get nowhere else, right here on CNN News 18 and right here on Brass Tacks over the next 1 hour. Let's jump right in.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Liftoff normal.
Here we have a majestic liftoff of LM-3 M4 rocket carrying India's prestigious Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft.
We are nearing the final phase of the power descent, approaching the moon surface.
जी हाँ, आप अपनी स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं.
What an incredible moment this is for ISRO, for India's space scientists, and for all of us here at CNN News 18. Unbelievable scenes, ladies and gentlemen.
Sir, we have achieved soft landing on the moon. India is on the moon.
जब हम अपनी आंखों के सामने ऐसा इतिहास बनते हुए देखते हैं, जीवन धन्य हो जाता है. ये क्षण जीत के चंद्र पथ पर चलने का.
India has conquered the moon, and how? And now we're getting the first pictures, the first visuals of the lunar surface. These are pictures taken by cameras on board the lander Vikram. It's been relayed back to mission control in Bengaluru, and you can see the craters there. You can see the uneven surface of the moon. Remember, the south side of the moon is the dark side of the moon. It hardly gets any sunlight. In fact, water is believed to have been frozen there at minus 200 degrees for years on end. So part of the scientific exploration that Vikram, the lander, and Pragyan, the rover, will be doing is about finding hydrogen, finding water, finding some of these minerals, which at that temperature have been preserved for tens of hundreds of years. So these are the first images that have been transmitted by Vikram, the lander, back to mission control in Bengaluru. But I want to play out some of the important sort of personalities and sound bites that we've got over the last couple of hours since this historic mission was successful. Chandrayaan-3, the mission is a success. Vikram has landed safely and a soft landing on the south side of the moon. Let's play out the Prime Minister's soundbite, as well as, of course, an exclusive interview with the ISRO chairman himself.
Space and Chairman ISRO, Shri S. Somnath.
Your first reaction, many congratulations. What is the mood there at the tracking center at the MOC?
We are all very jubilant to see the success of the Chandrayaan-3. It has landed exactly with the speed that we expected, very soft landing. And we are all excited to see that it has reached this situation so that we can do further experiments.
What was the last few minutes for you? You were sitting there with previous ISRO chiefs as well. The senior leadership team was sitting there with you. What was the last few moments like for you and your team?
You know, we were very sure about it making this time, so we were not missed at all. And it was exactly following the track and the trajectory that it was destined to go. So we were all very comfortable to see it traveling as expected.
Was there any moment where you felt like, memories from 4 years ago were coming back?
I know that we learn from those memories, those experiences. So there is nothing to be worried about what happened in the past. So we did what we can, and that we achieved it. So there is nothing that is so anxious about that.
Sir, a word of appreciation for the team, the project team, the mission team. They've spent their almost lifetime building this project.
Yes, yes. In fact, the Chandrayaan journey started with Chandrayaan-1. It is a journey of last so many years. And reaching up to the moon itself was a big challenge during Chandrayaan-1, which we perfected. And later in Chandrayaan-2, we did it. And now also we could do the launching as well as reaching moon and capturing in orbit very safely. But the challenge of landing softly is always an enigma for anybody. So that has been broken this time, and we made it successfully. So we are extremely happy about that. The thought process, the hard work, and the testing that the team did for last so many years.
So what happens next? When do we start getting data from the rover as well as from the lander about what it's discovering?
We have to have many initial conditions checks, the health verifications, communication links for scientific data, and after that we will be getting ready for the rover to come out. Before that itself, there are a lot of processes like the RAM opening, RAM latching, and then the rover will come out. It will take few hours to confirm that.
And sir, in terms of what this means for future missions, the Gaganyaan, the Aditya mission, and then of course there is the Mangalyaan as well.
Honorable Prime Minister was addressing us, and he was mentioning about all of that. He mentioned about the Aditya L1 mission, the mission that we have for future like the Venus and the Gaganyaan as well. So all of these are in the offing, and we are working very hard to achieve those targets. Aditya L1 is scheduled for next month itself, and we will be following up with the rest of those exploratory missions, science missions that we are in the drawing board.
जब हम अपनी आंखों के सामने ऐसा इतिहास बनते हुए देखते हैं तो जीवन धन्य हो जाता है। ऐसी ऐतिहासिक घटनाएं राष्ट्र जीवन की चिरंजीव चेतना बन जाती है। ये पल अविस्मरणीय है। ये क्षण अभूतपूर्व है। ये क्षण विकसित भारत के शंखनाद का है। ये क्षण नए भारत के जयघोष का है। ये क्षण मुश्किलों के महासागर को पार करने का है।
All right, that was Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaking to the ISRO team of scientists, the mission folks, the project team, all of them. He was, of course, getting the vantage view of the final few moments as the touchdown happened. So what does this moment mean for ISRO, for India's space exploration, and where does it go from here? Dr. Shailesh Nayak is former chairman of ISRO. Tessie Thomas is known as the Missile Woman of India. She's DG Aeronautical Systems at DRDO. Dr. Radhakant Padhi is a professor of aerospace engineering at ISE. In fact, Group Captain retired B.N. Jha is former joint director at DRDO. He's joining us as well. Let me go across first to Dr. Nayak, Dr. Shailesh Nayak. As someone who has seen this from close quarters, what does the moment like today mean for you and the community of ISRO scientists who have made the entire nation proud? Yes, the previous one ended up in failure, but it's because of the lessons of that failure that today's success was achieved. What does today's moment mean for you and for your community of scientists?
Yeah, I think it's a very proud moment. And the most important thing is that how do you learn from your failures? And in science, this is the most important. There are a lot of uncertainties and we need to learn. And I think there the ISRO culture of reviewing each thing and also addressing the issues which comes up at different levels. And you must also appreciate, that the kind of number of people involved in this, there may be more than 10,000 people involved to do this. And all the teamwork, the leadership, and the culture which ISRO has developed is the success story. And that is, I think, I cherish. Because that is not present in many other institutes. Yeah. This is what the teamwork and the leadership is the critical.
So, in terms of, what lessons were learned from the previous time, Chandrayaan-2 4 years ago, which ended up in failure, and the corrective mechanisms that were taken this time around, what in your estimate was the difference in the lessons that were learned and thereby the difference between failure and success?
I won't call the previous mission as a failure. The orbiter is still running,
Correct.
still orbiting. It's still providing data. Today also it provided communication support. So it's not a failure. Only failure was the lander, it didn't land. And there may be several issues and, but that all have been corrected. And that is what the most important. And you must also realize that few days back, Russia couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So it is not that simple. It is not, there is a lot of intricacies and lot of understanding has to be done. So the important part is how best we learn. And this is a learning by experience.
Okay, Tessie Thomas, again, what Dr. Nayak said, there are probably about 10,000 people who are involved in this entire project, in this entire mission, from the launch team, the propulsion team, the guidance team, the sensor team, the optical team, and of course, finally, the touchdown team. Walk us through why so many different people and so many different teams and cogs are involved to make something like this a success. It may boil down to those last 15 minutes as it did today, but the efforts are perhaps that of a lifetime.
It's a great, marvelous achievements for the country and years of effort by the space community. It's a great moment of pride for the leader, Dr. S. Somnath and his team, for exploring this milestone achievement and putting India into the first country to soft land on the south pole of the moon region.
Yeah.
And for my experience of mission design and guidance and control, I know the efforts of thousands of scientists who have worked in ISRO for this mission. As you mentioned, it has to be a coordinated efforts of all the teams, propulsion team, the navigation team, guidance team, control team, all working for this full, well-planned 40 days of efforts starting from its launch. Prior to that, years of work. But from launch day or previous day, the countdown starts to today's lander reaching the moon, Vikram landing there. The great efforts of scientists from all field working together to achieve this. It's a great moment and proud for our country.
All right, I want to go across to Akash Sinha as well. He's a space scientist and his company was involved in a part of Pragyan, the rover. So tell us and tell our viewers about that and also what the rover's work will be, which starts now. The lander has done its job, the soft landing, the safe landing has happened. Now the rover has to begin its job.
Thank you so much. First of all, many congratulations to the entire country and ISRO. I think it's a remarkable achievement. As you said, yes, we were fortunate enough to be part of this mission. We developed part of the navigation software that will be used by the Pragyan rover. So once the rover, comes out, which I believe will happen sometime shortly, the rover will use its two eyes. There are two stereo cameras on it that work as two eyes, and those two eyes will help it build a 3D model of what it sees in front of it. That 3D model will help it navigate around the moon. And most of this process will be done fully autonomously. The rover will also have some equipment with which it can drill. It has a spectrometer so that it can analyze the samples that it collects. One of the good things about the rover is that, again, there's been a lot of ingenuity used here to keep the cost low.
Yeah.
And we've been very smart in the software, and that's why we could be go less expensive in hardware. So we haven't used some very expensive 3D LiDAR or flash LiDAR sensors, which many other firms use. We have a very small, lightweight rover which works just like us with two human-like eyes on it, and it builds a 3D stereo out of it.
Okay. So let me now, before I go to our other two guests, let me just give you a sense, a lowdown of what exactly is going to happen next. Now, the touchdown has happened, the soft landing has happened, the lander is on the lunar surface. In the next few hours, the lander will open. In fact, one side of the panel of the lander will open, and it will then make way for the rover to come out. So let me just explain that process for our viewers. So one side of the panel that will unfold, and then it will allow the rover to come out. It's going to conduct a series of banking procedures after the landing happens so that it's in a stable position. One side opens. It creates a ramp. There's going to be a ramp between the lander and the lunar surface in a way to enable the Pragyan rover to roll out. It's a 6-wheeled rover. As Akash was saying, it's lightweight. It rolls off from the lander onto the lunar surface. Pragyan will be moving at a very slow speed, at 1 centimeter per second roughly. That is how slow the rover will be moving. It will scan the lunar surface of the moon. What will it look for? It will look for minerals. It will look for hydrogen. It will look for water. Remember, water has frozen there on the south side of the moon at minus 200 degrees. It will also, the rover, it has 6 wheels. It will leave imprints of the national emblem, the 4 lions, and also the logo of ISRO. So that's going to be India's imprint or India's tracks on the lunar surface. The rover will continue to communicate with the lander. The lander is still communicating with the orbiter from the previous mission, Chandrayaan-2, and they will send out data back to mission control. The rover will then provide all of that data. It's going to be on the lunar surface for one lunar day, which is 14 Earth days. The lander will then send all of that information, collate it, and send it back to mission control. So on that, let me ask Dr. Radhakant Padi, people sort of try to try and make sense of this in layman terms for our viewers as to, all this information. What is it that the rover is trying to find from the lunar surface, and how may that information, the scientific basis of that information, how may that be useful for future missions, as it were?
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Padi.
As you rightly told, there are several sensors on the rover, and then several sensors will really collect a host amount of data. And if I really can recall, this has got an alpha particle X-ray spectrometer. It has got a laser-induced breakdown spectroscope as well, and it also got a polarimetry, spectropolarimetry that you can study Earth. From the moon, basically.
Okay.
These are kind of interesting sensors, and many of the sensors have been developed in-house in ISRO, which is very nice to see it happening.
So, for the next 14 days, 14 Earth days, we will have all of that information. Will this information be collated and shared with other space agencies as well? Where are we in terms of research of proof of life on the lunar surface? Chandrayaan-1 had indicated that there may be the presence of water, but now how does this take that forward?
I'm just coming back from ISRO's Mission Control Center, so it is not really 14 days. Maybe we'll have 13 days. Just about 1 day is already over.
Sure.
Also, it's a picture-perfect landing, basically. In fact, the slope that we estimated about 4 degrees round is roughly about 5-6 degrees. And then everything went very nicely, and the designated site to actual landing was within half a kilometer, within 400 meters, basically.
Okay.
So it's a very nice, perfect landing that we have been waiting for. And in fact, we have done several improvements to the system. The ISRO team along with our lab as well.
Okay.
This is what it is. But then coming back to your question, yes, there will be a lot of data collection about mineral composition of the soil, about seismic activity of the moon, about you can just put some little bit of laser beams and break down these small stones out there and study the chemical composition. Like suppose has it got calcium, magnesium, iron, whatever it is. And all these studies will be nicely done, and through the data collected from the rover as well as from the lander. Both of them have sensors.
Okay, Captain V.N. Jha, one of the facts that we perhaps don't give enough credit for is that ISRO has done this at a fraction of the cost of other similar lunar missions. In fact, we had this graphic running through our shows that, some of the biggest Hollywood movies have a budget that is far higher than what ISRO spent on the entire Chandrayaan-3 mission. It's about 600 crores or so. How may that be useful for ISRO in the future, in future missions, as well as, of course, ISRO now sends into space satellites of other countries. So if other countries are interested in lunar missions, then ISRO could be offering them a cheap alternative.
Saka, I'm actually on the moon, and I'm sure entire India, entire 1.4 billion people must be feeling to be, resting on the moon. And it is so amazing, our scientists, especially the high performing scientists, that they are so humble. They do so much and speak so less. This is something very unique of the scientists that they have. I mean, we have just heard the series of the scientists that they have performed. It's marvelous. It's a great feat. And especially in this particular mission, when ISRO has done everything that was possible. I have been discussing at various places. People used to talk about the 18 minutes of terror, 18 minutes of terror. I always, cut them. I said, no, it is not 18 minutes of terror. Those 18 minutes are the marvel of science that the ISRO would have put in that computer chip, in that computer which is aboard that lander, which is going to guide those 18 minutes. And believe me, I was just feeling that every inch of the descent that was happening, those were absolute marvel of science that the ISRO scientists had put into this. This is one area. Secondly, now you asked me about the things that how we go from here. There are many things. Right now, let us get out of the shock. At least, I have been a design scientist in the DRDO. And many times, ISRO, of course, didn't come in the media to talk about as much as freely as they are talking today. But every time that we were talking about the present design of the Chandrayaan-3, everyone was talking that failure mode and this thing that. Every critical system equipment that we design, we carry out this FMECA by an independent agency. This is failure mode effects and criticality analysis by an independent body. In our case, mostly we incorporate IIT Kharagpur.
All right.
Those scientists, they come and do it here. I'll just take another 10 seconds. So all these were known, and every time that we wondered that could this go wrong, and then we thought that it is already incorporated. So we were absolutely confident, almost 100% confident that this soft landing will succeed.
Okay,
and
so what does this mean? What does this new chapter in Indian space exploration mean? Now, clearly, this is a new voyage in Space Odyssey. The intent, of course, is that India now becomes one of the leading players in the space race, as it were. The implication is that it cements its position among space-faring nations. Remember, right now, there are only 2 other countries that have successfully, in fact, if you take the former Soviet Union, that would be 3, but the US, Russia, and China are the 3 other countries that have successfully landed a mission on the moon. The intent, of course, is collaboration. There are partnerships. It could have potential for enhanced global partnerships. The Prime Minister also made a mention of that in his speech today. The intent, of course, is to try and boost the morale of not just the launch team or the mission team, but entire 1.4 billion Indians. The implication is that this fuels passion in the next generation for science and technology, for space technology, to take up space technology as a career. So what does the road ahead look like? Well, it means boosting space startups. Remember, at a time when we're talking about private space companies, SpaceX and Virgin Galactic, India could be on the cusp of producing private space entrepreneurs. Also, scientific research will increase as a result of this, and the implication would be an enhanced understanding of the moon. And like I keep saying, the whole idea behind proof of life on the moon becomes something that will be having huge implications. So also what has happened between Chandrayaan-2 and Chandrayaan-3 is that this is a solid mission in the way that they learned from the mistakes of the past. There was redemption, vindication of sorts for the entire ISRO team, and today it was met with success. So clearly it is a big moment for India's scientists, India's space community, and of course the hard-working men and women of ISRO. As I get quick closing comments from our first panel before we move to our second panel, I want to go back to Dr. Shailesh Nayak. Where does the Indian space program go from here, just in terms of the other missions that are outlined for ISRO?
Yeah, I think the other missions are also extremely critical. The Aditya mission is coming, Kedarnath, and I think there are many others to look for in the planetary research. Our solar system. I think there is a whole lot of new things will be opened up now. That if we have to go to other planets, I think the moon would be sort of a in between where we can launch our missions to other satellites. And this may happen in next 15 years. And this, I think, it's a very great moment. And this will lead as one major change which has happened in last 25 years or so. So I'm very hopeful, and my very best to the ISRO people. Thank you.
Tessie Thomas, do you believe India is now at the cusp of being able to send its technology and its know-how to other countries around the world? India is already doing that in terms of launching of satellites. Could we be in a position where we are exporting that technology to other countries, or other countries are riding piggyback on ISRO's technology, countries that may be interested in other launch missions, whether it is to the moon or to space, whatever the other missions that countries may be interested in?
Yeah, definitely. Our country has proven the space capability and explored missions of this great nature. That itself shows the capability and what we can achieve in terms of space economy. I think surely the startups and all across the world will be looking for launching through our satellites, our centers, for these great achievements. I think our country has shown the potential, the space potential, that what we can explore and do it. And definitely the generations to come will be learning more from this type of milestone achievements. It
has, of course, ignited 1,000 sparks, to borrow the book title of former President APJ Abdul Kalam. It has really ignited 1,000 sparks across this country, across the length and breadth, and the next generation will take it to the next level. Who knows? Today it's the moon, tomorrow it may be Mars. I want to thank all our guests who are joining us on this panel one. As we move on to our second panel, I want to play out some of the vox pops from celebrities that has come to us. Of course, like I said, it's not just for the scientific community in ISRO, but for every single Indian, wherever you are, in Shillong or in Chennai or in Mumbai or in Hyderabad or Delhi, wherever you are. Today was a moment where you held your head high with pride and said, I'm proud to be an Indian. My flag has been planted today on the moon. Here are some celebrities exuding that same sentiment, and right after that we'll go straight to our global panel that is joining us on this incredible day.
भारत माता की जय, भारत माता की जय, वाह 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 वाह। मतलब इससे ज्यादा खुशी की बात मेरे जिंदगी में कभी नहीं हुई है कि हम तो जब छोटे थे तो ये गाते थे गाना, चांद पे होंगे चंदा मामा दूर के है ही नहीं। तो मैं इस मौके पर सभी देशवासियों को नतमस्तक होकर, और खासकर हमारे इसरो के साइंटिस्ट को नतमस्तक होकर प्रणाम करता हूं और कहता हूं कि उनकी ये सफलता पूर्ण रूप से पूर्ण हुई और हम चांद पे पहुंचे हैं। अभी मैं अपने एक्टिंग स्कूल में अपने सारे स्टाफ के साथ बैठा था, मैंने इतना उल्लास हर उम्र के लोगों में कभी नहीं देखा है।
मान्यताएं परमात्मा तक जा रही थी, हमारे वैज्ञानिकों का ये प्रयोग सफल हुआ है। मेरे भारतवर्ष, आपको अनंत बधाई। ऐ मेरे वैज्ञानिकों, आपको अनंत बधाई। ऐ मेरे इसरो, ऐ मेरे ऑफिसरों।
I want to congratulate ISRO for this fantastic achievement. I want to say something. Now onwards, globally, nobody can ignore India. Salute ISRO.
It's a matter of great pride, not just for me, for India, the scientists in ISRO, but for the entire world. It's not a small task to land on the South Pole with all the resources at our disposal. And I think the Indian scientists have created history, not just because they managed to do it, but also at the cost at which they have managed to do it. And I'm so happy, and I'm so happy for Nambi sir, because his Vikas engine has yet again proved to be the workhorse of ISRO. And I'm this means a lot for Indian space industry, and I'm very, very glad that we're on the verge of creating such a spectacular piece of history, space history, and I'm praying hard like the rest of the country is.